The views and opinions expressed on Real Talk with Horace Sheffield are not those of WADL TV 38 or Adele Broadcasting Corporation.
Giving you real talk, real talk, real talk. Take a walk down this path through Detroit, Detroit. This is real talk, real talk, real talk. Real issues straight from the heart. Giving you real talk, real talk, real talk. Take a walk down this path through Detroit, Detroit. This is real talk, real talk, real talk.
All right, that's enough of that, and I give homage to both of them who I knew very well, and raised money for my dad's Sheffield Center, and McFadden actually spoke at my church on a couple of occasions. So this is our Detroit Votes national call. We thank God for all the folks who are on. We'll have an opportunity for all of you to ask questions. And before we go any further, a dear friend of mine, a young man who's run many campaigns and done so very well, Eddie McDonald, who is from the Biden-Harris campaign, and we want to be focused. We're not nonpartisan on this. Everybody on this call is promoting one of the only chance you really have in this election to turn this country around. Eddie McDonald.
Hello.
Bishop Sheffield, how are you?
I'm good, my friend.
I can say hello to everybody. Pleasure to be on this call. I'd like to say hello to Senator Anita Turner once again, just to let all of you folks know. We won big in 2018, but Senator Turner came here and shook it up. She had quite a few speeches here. She got on a bus tour with Virgil Rollins and just really rocked the state, and people are still talking about her 2 years later. So God bless her. She was our lucky charm in 2018, and now that she's back on board, I think we're gonna be in good shape. And I'd like to thank Miss Alexander for being on board as well. Thank all of you, but we're here because of Bishop Sheffield. When it comes to election time or any other time, we don't have to go find him. He's always where he's supposed to be, and sometimes where he's not supposed to be, until the rest of us understand that's really where he's supposed to be. So God bless him, and God bless all of you. We've got 14 days to go. We're working real hard, and in the words of the late, great Satchel Paige, he says, don't look back or something may be gaining on you. We have no intention of losing this race, and we're gonna keep working hard from now clean through 8 p.m. on November 3rd. Thank all of you.
Okay, I'm trying to, we have Martin Luther King III, here he is, I'm gonna move him. I'm not a millennial, so I've learned to use this technology. So we've got all of our panels here, with the exception of my daughter, who is at a retreat. She's an elected official, but she's a preacher, and she's been trying to hone her homiletical skills so that one day she can pray like Peter and preach like her dad. I want to introduce a young man I've known for many, many years. Our families have been connected. My father, working with his dad. Obviously, everything that we've had of any significant gain occurred not only through his efforts, but also through the blood that he sacrificed. And of course, that's his son, Martin Luther King III, who is a peace advocate, a civil rights advocate in his own regard. Welcome, Martin. How are you today?
Thank you, Reverend Dr. Sheffield. I appreciate having the opportunity to share today. And the only thing I will say initially is my father often said that a voteless people is a powerless people. And one of the most important steps that we can take is that short step to the ballot box. And so Michiganders and certainly Detroiters have always voted, as I heard a comment earlier. But this year, there is a beyond serious effort to suppress our votes through every or any means that they can find. And so while I am very optimistic, I'm also very concerned about what I see happening in our nation, in our cities. Here in Atlanta and in Georgia, we've had a significant turnout over the last week, now going into the second week, the largest that we've ever seen. And so we're starting off good, but we've got to finish good. So I'll stop for now, but thank you so much for the opportunity.
Appreciate that preamble.
Yeah, but I have a question for you. You already hit on one of my
Okay, hold on, we
questions.
gotta introduce
I
everybody.
know, not
Go ahead,
yet,
go
not
ahead.
yet.
Okay, all right, yeah. All right, so, and then a very dear friend of mine who I met through campaigning, came to the Sheffield Center. We connected immediately. She's been back several times for me to help us address the issue of suiciding. Had her imprimatur on Good Trouble for John Lewis, and that's my dear friend, my baby sister, Erica Alexander.
It's good to be here. Thank you. Thank you, Reverend Sheffield, who's my good friend and mentor. And I showed up in Detroit, and the person who found me and led me breadcrumbs to the center, DABO, was Reverend Sheffield, and he's been my friend ever since. And it's been a pleasure. And I appreciate it because I'm your biggest fan, all of you. Martin Luther King III, Nina Turner, who I love. Mr. Eddie McDonald, thank you for that beautiful intro. And Attorney John Harris, thank you so much. I'm so glad to be asked on this to discuss these things. But I'm a rookie, so y'all lead it.
And so, while I've been connected with many of you all, Martin and Erica and others, Eddie, my connection to Nina really is through my sister, who was an educator, who was the chief of staff of Mayor Mike White in Cleveland. And I got to know, again, Nina Turner. I'm attracted to powerful, strong women who are not ashamed or afraid to voice their opinions. And of course, Nina has risen to such unparalleled heights in terms of political platforms, in terms of promoting political personalities. And we know there's a lot more for her own career ahead of her, but we're glad to have the honorable, put them up or shut them up, Nina Turner.
Well, thank you, Bishop, so much. I'm gonna have to take you on the road when I get on the road again.
I'll be your hype. I'll be your hype man.
My hype man. Everybody need a good hype man. And Brother McDonald, thank you so much for your kind words. I do want to shout out Chairwoman Virgie Rollins. On that bus was quite something to travel to do. Very much what we're doing right now virtually is to remind people that there was an election, that it was important that their voices be heard. To Attorney Harris, thank you. And to MLK III, what can I say? It is quite the honor to be on this call with you. Reverend Sheffield knows how to bring good people together. And my sister, Erica Alexander, Lord have mercy. I really have adored and admired her for a long time. And you just never know who God's going to bring in your space. And we've been rocking strong ever since God brought us together. So peace and blessings to all of you. We know that the vote is the greatest equalizer, one of the greatest equalizers that we have. One woman, one man, one vote. We can never afford to squander it. There's no such thing as an off-year election, never has been, never will be. Yes, 2020 is vitally important for a whole host of reasons, but so is 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, and so on and so forth. Good can never sleep. Or evil never, good can never sleep because evil never takes a vacation. So, or evil never sleeps, so good can never take a vacation. And voting is part of our collective responsibility to really be engaged. And it's only the beginning of the responsibilities that we have as civically minded individuals, not just in the great city and state of Detroit, but all over this country. We must vote, and then we must agitate, activate, inspect what we expect.
There you go. So I'm gonna take a little liberty. You're absolutely right. There's no off-year elections, but this is the out-year election, the year to put that scoundrel out of the White House and put our person there to do what needs to be done. Look, John Harris is my co-host on my radio show. One of the top attorneys for Ford Motor Company, served all over Europe on behalf of that company. Civil rights attorney, one of the most informed people I know, and brings such a passion. By the way, went to Case Western Reserve Law School, and we're just glad to have him now that he's retired from Ford Motor Company, helping DABO, helping me, and helping all those who need help. Attorney John Harris.
Thank you, Reverend Sheffield. Thanks for having me, this distinguished panel. Thanks to Nina, to Eric, and to Brother Martin III. Look forward to this discussion. And we have to vote as if our lives depend on it, because they do.
Yeah. So I want to say one thing that I'm going to do is to Shayla Coates. My dad's archives are recently digitized. The same people did Robert Kennedy's and Jackie Robinson's. We spent a ton of money doing this, and Martin, you'll appreciate this, and I'll share the index with you. There was a treasure trove of tapes during the civil rights movement, one of which was my dad was in Selma interviewing Black residents who said there were 18,000 plus people who were eligible to vote in Selma, but only 300 and some were actually registered, which is 130 some more than there were before the Voting Rights Act. And so they're having this conversation here, people in the background, Andy Young's voice is on there, and the young man breaks in and says, look, if we get to vote, we just gonna go up there and take the rest. John, you've heard the tape. It's
Right.
very powerful. I put voting in that context. That's why we're having this Detroit Votes. Let me introduce my co-host, Shayla Coates, who does all of our public relations and promotes our causes, and she's gonna take it away to Shayla.
All right. Hello, everyone. All right. So we already kind of touched on the topic a little bit. So there was this article that was published in Washington Post like 2 days ago, and they're talking about how Black voters are coming to the polls at, you know, astronomical rates, how we're set to break historic levels for the amount of voters that are coming to the polls early, right? So obviously that has something to do with, you know, the pandemic and COVID, but do you think that this trend will continue through to the end of the election?
Whoever wants to start, go right ahead. How about you, Erica? Let's go with you first.
Yes, sir. Well, I think that we need worlds, and new worlds are being built, and I'm thinking about it from a storytelling point of view. I think that white people and white supremacy have been able to tell a story through a very narrow POV, and it's gotten us to this point. If they were doing the Southern strategy years ago, and this is where it's landed us, then the only thing we can push back is to tell a better story. And one of the stories that we did tell is how we defeated, as Reverend Sheffield said, this scoundrel, but also what happens afterwards. We really are an undiscovered country when it comes to how much we can do if we start to build a real coalition. And so I'm hoping that it not only goes to the end of the cycle, but also beyond. It's really about the story beyond what we can see that we really need to focus on. But if we don't get this, then we're doing a whole nother thing. So it's my prediction that it will go beyond, because I think people in this pandemic and also during this time have had an up close front seat audience view of what happens when you leave a republic on its own and allow yourself to be ruled by others who don't have your best interest in mind.
Yeah, thank you. Martin, how about you next?
Well, you know, the only thing that we must and can do, and thank you so much, Erica, for what you just shared. The hope is that, yes, it will continue. What I believe is there probably will be more people. We're going to be evaluating this process for a long time. And there probably will be more people who have voted than ever have. The pandemic, certainly the tragedy of George Floyd, but Breonna Taylor, you know, Avery Ahmaud, Jacob Blake did not die, but constantly there's shootings. Another young man here in Atlanta as well that was killed. We keep seeing these things and they're not going anywhere. There are other incidents happening. So engagement, I believe, will continue. Now, you know, obviously we have to be, I thought you said, Bishop, that we are partisan. Is that what you just said? I just want to make sure.
I said we can be wherever you want to be. We can be Black, you know, we can be universalists, we can be where we need to be. But what we need to do is take care of ourselves.
There seems to be a lot of confusion or some confusion in our community.
Yes.
You know, some of us, including myself, even have members of our family that we cannot explain as to why they seem to not see what exists, which is destructive for the world. If you look at what is going on in the world, just today, a story appears that talks about how greatly the United States' respect is diminished. Mm-hmm. People should be embarrassed about who exists in the White House that constantly is tearing us apart. We used to have civil dialogue, even if we had a president that we didn't agree with, at least there was an ability to have civil dialogue. This administration does not believe in civility. And it really does believe in an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. And a lot of people are losing eyes and teeth is what I want to say. But obviously that is not the way that is going to save our nation and really help actually save our planet. And so, I believe engagement, because I think that's where you started, will, yes, continue. It's not going anywhere, because these problems won't be resolved tomorrow. Systemic racism in America is not going to be resolved tomorrow. We can make strides, and yes, we are. In fact, if you look at see what's happening, whether it is, probably one of the most important things that we need to happen is we need an educational curriculum change. It starts with education. And some of us, and not anybody particularly, don't know who we are. And certainly America does not know who we are, because we have a diverse group of people who have made beyond phenomenal contributions to make this nation what it is. And so until our history includes us, and also includes our indigenous population that was here before any of us got here, our native brothers and sisters. Some call Indians, some call them Native Americans. Those brothers and sisters, we got to start with where we messed up and went wrong, was we started off mistreating people. And so I'm just saying this movement is going to continue, because something is awoken in society that has never been awoken. And we saw it come to a superhead as the tragic death of George Floyd. And while it seems like some has subsided, it's not going anywhere until we really seriously resolve these issues.
So this genie's not going back in the bottle anytime soon. Let's go to Eddie, and we'll go to Nina, and then go to John. Eddie, you want to chime in?
I'm just having a great time just listening, in all honesty. But as the Rev just said, it's not going away. There's no way in the world it can go away. And those of us who are out here as activists need to keep that flame burning. But at the same time, we need to do a lot of listening, because what woke us all up was the amount of these young folks out here. We talk about Black young folks, Hispanic young folks, white young folks, and they're out here and they have not gone home. They're trying to keep this flame going. So maybe some of us, with a little gray in the hair, and some of us no hair at all, can reach back and listen and assist them along their way. Because every great movement, every great revolution started with the young folks. So what we need to do is just step up, listen, and do all we can to assist them.
All right, thank you. Speaking of young people, given some of our age, Nina Turner, you're in that category. You're next.
You so kind, Bishop. I'm gonna amen everything that was said. You just gotta know when to say amen. So amen.
Yep. So you agree with that? Okay. All right, Attorney John Harris, who always waxed so eloquent. I don't know how you keep up with all the data you do. He's on my radio show. We talk about something. He comes with a flurry of empirical statistics and data. So, a lot of people, by the way, on our panel, we know a lot of people who just refuse to accept the facts. John, tell us the facts.
Yeah, well, the facts are, in order for Biden-Harris to be elected, this wave must continue. We cannot put too much stock in the current polls, because the polls are close to where they are in 2016, and we cannot become complacent. I think that's the critical message as we go into the last 13 days of the campaign. The other important fact is, if you look at 2000, 04, 08, and 012, what you saw was the Democrats voting early, Republicans showing up on voting day and voting. And so they are voting early at a higher rate. So Biden-Harris is banking more votes than they have historically. But we have to understand the Republicans are going to show up on voting day en masse. And so we have to keep the enthusiasm if we hope to win.
So here's my question. I'm going to go back to Shayla after me. I have had great consternation listening to people who I call prophets on the payroll. You and I, who are very active, we know those folks who espouse things that are not in our best interest, and we know that they're being compensated for it. In 2016, they raised all kinds of issues. These are Democrats, talk show hosts about Hillary Clinton. Now, some of those same folks in Detroit showed up on the station that I'm on, beginning to raise issues about Biden. I guess my question is this, and I know we should vote for someone. I'm voting for Biden. But if you had to think about what was the most egregious thing that would motivate you or should motivate anybody as to why they should vote and vote against his present president, what would it be?
Well, for me, as a lawyer, it's the kind of justices he's appointing to the Supreme Court. Those are lifetime appointments. They are, we will become 6-3, conservative to liberal, once Amy Coney Barrett is appointed. They're going to tackle issues such as Obamacare, gun control, abortion, gay marriage, police reform, voter suppression. And he's appointed 3 justices, who's going to shape our lives for the next 40 or 50 years. And it scares me beyond belief about what this country can become if we don't elect Biden Harris.
So you and I know this because as a lawyer, I'm not a lawyer, but we know, and Martin would know this, that the change in the South, all the things that we fought for were codified by law. Plessy, well, welcome to A Real Talk. We have Dr. Banu Kumar, and she's a pediatrician at the famed Children's Hospital of Michigan. Welcome to our show.
Thank you.
Well, Halloween is a fun time for kids. This year's gonna be a lot different because of the pandemic. Why don't you tell us some things that parents ought to be concerned about and careful with respect to Halloween this year?
Right. Well, Halloween this year is going to be very different because of the pandemic, because of the COVID-19. We all know that COVID-19 spreads by droplets and it's in the air. So wearing a face mask becomes very important. And you do want to avoid big indoor parties because we know that that's how COVID spreads. So we can't do the traditional trick-or-treating that we're so used to doing every year. But that doesn't mean that we give up Halloween altogether. We could still do Halloween, but we just have to take a lot of precautions. Socially distancing becomes very important. So when trick-or-treaters go out, they don't want to be in very large crowds. So socially distancing each other and also making sure that the kids are hand sanitizing more often. So let
me stop you right there, because one of the biggest challenges I see, obviously kids like to travel in groups, and you've already said they need to socially distance, but how about the handling of all that candy? I mean, and you know, yeah.
Right, so the traditional trick-or-treating, handing out candy is not going to work, and that is not safe at all. What could be potentially just low risk is maybe individually wrapping candies and leaving them in the porch for the kids to just line up and grab it and go. That seems pretty reasonable, especially if kids are going to be, the trick-or-treaters are going to be wearing face masks, constantly, you know, washing cleaning their hands with hand sanitizer, and basically just keeping their distance.
So you recommend that? I mean, cutting you off because, you know, people sometimes hear what they want to hear. You're definitely saying that no one should be on their porch digging in a basket of candy, putting it in the basket, or kids grabbing it, that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, that is not good at all. So individually wrapped candies could just be kept for grabbing and going. You know, that's safer. Similarly, you know, if you're in the house and you want to leave out candies for the kids, please make sure that you're not sick. If you're sick or have any symptoms, or you've had exposure to COVID, you should not be handing out candies to the kids because you don't want to spread the disease to others.
So Halloween is a time that we've got to be very cautious about and concerned. I want to revisit, you know, this information that seems to go back and forth about how at risk children are and whether or not it's as severe for them as it is for adults. That seems to be changing every time I hear another report.
Well, coronavirus doesn't spare anybody. It affects everyone. It can infect everyone. But what we've seen so far is that children seem to be more children seem to be asymptomatic, meaning they don't really have those signs and symptoms that in general older people tend to have. Also, fortunately, most of the children don't really have any chronic diseases like, the old age diabetes, blood pressure, chronic lung disease, things like that. But that said, children are also vulnerable because their immunity is still just developing. I'm talking about the very extreme, the very newborn, the small babies that haven't gotten any immunizations yet. These are vulnerable populations too. And then there are other kids who have chronic lung diseases, asthma, and some children do have diabetes too. So those are kids that are vulnerable to get those, symptoms. Now, because COVID is most of the time asymptomatic in children, we don't know if a kid has got a COVID. So then that infection can go on to the adults. And that is why it is so important for all of us to practice hand hygiene and wear a mask and socially distance.
But it seems to me as the social distance is extremely important with that population, in particular if kids don't have the symptoms, more of them are asymptomatic. So if you're running in the pack on Halloween, you don't know who has it, who doesn't.
No, that is why it is safer maybe to just go with your own family members, a couple of kids from the same family, or just a couple of neighbors. So you're not going to different communities. You're not mingling with people from other communities because you don't know. The COVID seems to be very different in different communities too.
Well, that's my granddaughter right there. She was over last night reading with me, Lauren McKenzie Scruggs. She wants to be a doctor. Okay. And I've already told her she's going to put a nursing outfit. I'm going to go to the store and let her trick or treat down the aisles.
Well, there are other fun activities families can do together, like decorating the pumpkin, carving it and decorating the whole house, right? Maybe wearing costumes and doing virtual contests.
Right. So let's one last question, which is important. Everywhere I go, I see parents with masks, but children without them. What is your recommendation for children in masks?
Children should be wearing masks too. Of course, you want to make sure that it is safe. So a little toddler or a little baby who, if they feel suffocated, cannot by themselves take off the mask, in those situations, it is risky. You don't want to put on a mask. And that's why it's safer to put on a mask for anybody over the age of 2, because you would assume that normal kids over the age of 2, if they're feeling that they can't breathe, they can just take off the mask. But for anybody who is incapable of taking off the mask by themselves, it's unsafe to put the mask on. So you just got to be watching.
So we're talking with Dr. Banu Kumar, right?
Kumar,
and she's with DMC. And we thank you for this time you've taken to help us, help my granddaughter and all those wonderful kids out there be safe on Halloween. Thank you so very, very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you to our community for trusting us with your care.
No one can explain the depth of commitment to take care of the patients. It's been extraordinary.
The doctors and nurses, we've asked more from them than we ever have.
Walk down this path through Detroit. This is real talk.